In this video, I will be explaining the first chapter of Indian Polity based on the book Indian Polity by M. Laxmikanth. Let us begin. In 1600, the British Queen Elizabeth I gave permission to a private company called the East India Company to trade with Eastern countries, including India. Remember this clearly. The East India Company was not a government. It was a private business company. Their intention was simple: profit through trade. They came to India and established trading centers in places like Surat, Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta. Initially, they had no political power. India was ruled by powerful empires like the Mughals. But slowly, the Mughal Empire weakened after Aurangzeb's death in 1707. This created political instability. The East India Company took advantage of this situation. Now comes one of the most important turning points in Indian history. Important event: Battle of Plassey, 1757. In 1757, the East India Company, under Robert Clive, fought against the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Daulah, in the Battle of Plassey. The company won this battle. This victory was extremely important because Bengal was one of the richest regions in India. This gave the company political power for the first time. Important event: Battle of Buxar, 1764. In 1764, the company fought another battle called the Battle of Buxar. They defeated three rulers: Nawab of Bengal, Nawab of Awadh, Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. After this victory, the Mughal Emperor granted the company the Diwani rights. Diwani rights means the right to collect revenue. This was extremely important. Now the company was not just trading, it was collecting taxes and ruling people. This created problems. The company officials were corrupt. They exploited people. There was no proper administrative system. The British Parliament became concerned. This leads us to the first major act, Regulating Act of 1773, first step of British government control. This is the first and most important starting point in constitutional development. The Regulating Act of 1773 was passed by the British Parliament to control the East India Company. Why was this act needed? Because the company was ruling millions of people but had no proper system, and there was corruption and mismanagement. Key features of Regulating Act 1773. First, it made the Governor of Bengal the Governor General of Bengal. Warren Hastings became the first Governor General. This is important for prelims. Second, it created an executive council of 4 members to assist the Governor General. Third, it established the Supreme Court at Calcutta in 1774. This was the first Supreme Court in India. Important significance. For the first time, the British Parliament directly intervened in Indian administration. This marked the beginning of centralized administration. Pitt's India Act of 1784, introduction of dual control. The Regulating Act did not completely solve the problems. So the British government passed another act in 1784 called Pitt's India Act. This act introduced dual control. Dual control means to authorities controlling India. The East India Company handled administrative matters. The British government handled political matters. A new body called the Board of Control was created. This board represented the British government. Important significance. This act clearly showed that the British government was slowly taking real control over India. The company was becoming just an instrument. Charter Acts, centralization of power. Now let us understand the Charter Acts. These acts were passed to renew the company's license to operate in India. Among them, the Charter Act of 1833 is the most important. Charter Act of 1833, extremely important. This act made Lord William Bentinck the first Governor General of India. Before this, there was only Governor General of Bengal. Now, India was administratively unified. This is very important. This act also ended the company's commercial activities. The company stopped being a trading body. It became purely an administrative body. Important significance. India became a centralized administrative unit. This laid the foundation for a unified Indian government. Government of India Act 1858, end of company rule. Now comes one of the biggest turning points. Important event, Revolt of 1857. In 1857, Indian soldiers revolted against the British. This revolt happened due to many reasons: economic exploitation, political interference, social and religious interference, military grievances. Although the revolt failed, it shocked the British government. The British realized that company rule was no longer safe, so they passed the Government of India Act 1858. Key features: the East India Company was abolished. British Crown took direct control of India. A new post called Secretary of State for India was created. Important significance: this marked the beginning of direct British Crown rule in India. From now until 1947, India was ruled by the British Crown. Indian Councils Acts, beginning of Indian participation. Now Indians started demanding participation in governance. So the British passed the Indian Councils Acts. Indian Councils Act 1861. This act allowed Indians to be nominated to legislative councils. This was the first time Indians got representation, but they had very limited power. Indian Councils Act 1892. This act increased Indian representation. Indians could discuss the budget, but they could not vote. Indian Councils Act 1909, Monumental reforms, very important. This act introduced separate electorates for Muslims. This means Muslims could elect only Muslim representatives. Important significance: this created communal divisions in Indian politics. UPSC frequently asks questions from this. Government of India Act 1919, Introduction of Diarchy. This act introduced diarchy in provinces. Diarchy means dual government. Subjects were divided into two categories: reserved subjects controlled by British, police, finance, revenue; transferred subjects controlled by Indians, education, health, agriculture. Problem with diarchy: Indians had no real power. British controlled important subjects. This act failed to satisfy Indians. Government of India Act 1935, most important act. This is the most important act before independence. Many features of our constitution come from this act. Key features: federal structure, division of powers, provincial autonomy, federal court establishment, public service commissions, office of governor. Important significance: this act became the blueprint for the Indian Constitution. UPSC asks many questions from this act. Remember this clearly. Government of India Act 1935 is the most important act in this chapter. Indian Independence Act 1947, birth of independent India. Finally, the Indian Independence Act 1947 was passed. This act ended British rule. India became independent. Power was transferred to Indian leaders. Constituent Assembly got the power to make the Constitution. This led to the creation of the Indian Constitution in 1950. Final conclusion, complete story in one line. The historical background chapter explains how India moved step by step from company rule to crown rule to self-rule, and how each act contributed to the making of the Indian Constitution. Most important acts for UPSC. Priority order. Number 1. Government of India Act 1935. Number 2. Regulating Act 1773. Number 3. Pitt's India Act 1784. Number 4. Government of India Act 1858. Number 5. Indian Councils Act 1909. Number 6. Government of India Act 1919. Number 7. Indian Independence Act 1947. Subscribe to our channel for more UPSC and SSC syllabus related content.